3. So we'll just introduce ourselves real quick. I'm John Marr from Santa Ana College. What do you mean? Wait till we're done.
And as John said, my name is Dr. David Lopez. I'm from Fullerton College.
Corrected band.
And my name is Elliott Jones. I'm the choir director and voice teacher at Santa Ana College.
Thank you so much for joining us today. And so we're going to we've chopped up the work here. So I'm going to go ahead and start. Now, so we're going to look at Shiro Sugisu. He is the composer for Evangelion. If you should know his name, he is quite good. I'm going to skip over a lot of this because most of it's all the same material that I've presented the last 2 years. So he's worked with Ano Hideki. He started with him back in '90, working with Nadia, Secret of the Blue Water. How many of you have seen that? A few of you? Oh, good. Okay, fantastic. He also did His and Her Circumstances. Have any of you seen that one? That was his series after Evangelion. It is good until he left the series. He also did Shin Godzilla and Shin Ultraman. If you saw Shin Godzilla, you might say, hey, that sounds just like the Angel Attack music from Eva. It was. And so he recycles a lot of his tunes. In fact, I don't think we made it this time, but there was one piece David was mentioning, and I'm like, dang it, I know this is from Eva. I've heard this before, and I realized, it was music from, he worked into one of the films, but he actually used it from His and Her Circumstances. But we might get to that. He's also a producer and an arranger. Sugisu lives in Tokyo, London, and Paris. And I'm thinking, where do you get that money? And I'm thinking, Evangelion. Anybody who is involved with the franchise, as you know, has done very well financially. He actually owns a jazz club in Paris that has some pretty decent reviews on Yelp, so you can go check that out should you ever be in Paris and be in need of some jazz and some Japanese cuisine there. And I read a couple interviews of his in Japanese preparing for this, and it's very interesting. He's had a lot to say about the human element of musicking. That means making music, anyone involved in the process of it. So for him, he says, like, the most basic software is music notation, because that's how, we'd communicate, what we want to each other way back in the day. And he even says, well, the thing is, it could be a singer in the studio, and what's her story? What is she bringing to it? And what does the technology bring to it? What were the people who worked on the technology? What was their intent? And he's very interesting. I don't know if you've seen interviews with him, but he actually says, even now, he goes, listen, if you see me, come say hi to me, come talk to me. I'd love to talk to you, which is kind of cool because he's not one of those standoffish guys there. So we're going to start with a piece that we didn't get to. Oh, sorry, works. Okay, real quick. Kimagure Orange Road. Have any of you seen this? This is excellent. I know this is from even before my time, early '80s, but I have watched it. It's quite good. Nadia. This is when he started with Ano Hideki, and I do recommend this. These are both excellent series. Of course, Eva, which is why we're here. His and Her Circumstances. Again, excellent. If you've not seen this, I do recommend it. It's quite good. Very different from Eva. And Bleach, in fact, he's composing for Bleach again. And Berserk. The songwriter for Berserk, Susumu Hirasawa, another fantastic composer. David and I presented on him before. Shin Godzilla, Shin Ultraman, and this was Gridman Universe, which I've not seen. Anybody seen this one? Okay, a couple. So that's our composer here. And the thing is, if you like the composer, check out their other stuff, because Eva's wonderful, Eva's great, but he has done more than Eva. So this next piece we're going to look at, we actually ran out of time, so if you were here last year, sorry we didn't get to it. So we're going to take a look at it now. This is Paris from Eva 3.0.1.0. Now, do I have a witness? Was anybody here in 2019 when they showed the first 8 minutes of this here at AX? Oh, a few of you were. Were any of you wondering, why are we in Paris? It was just so crazy, because the thing with the rebuild is that the first movie you're like, okay, I kind of expected. The second film takes a hard left, and he just kind of did his own thing with it. And the fact that the fourth film starts in Paris is a real testament to his genius there. And I just love this opening music. All right. So this is the opening tune from the fourth Eva film, and huge progressive rock influence. So progressive rock, that's bands like Genesis, yes, King Crimson. They are, or like Tool, Primus would be newer ones, Dream Theater's another good one. And these are bands that can really play very, very well. They can play well, they can sing well, musically, harmonically, their stuff is very complex there. We're going to hear a 7/4 time signature, which is kind of weird because we're used to stuff being in either 4 or 3. Now, if you're from India, you're from Eastern Europe, you're from Iran, you're used to stuff in 7. Americans, we're not used to it. Everybody else, you get lost. But those other cultures, they're very much used to these kind of what we would call odd time signatures. So if you want to count this, it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's kind of a slow 7, and I'll count it out there. Let's see. Heavily syncopated. Syncopation just means you're emphasizing the weak part or weak parts of the beat. So if it and by the way, if you can dance to it, it's syncopated. Like your rock and roll, your hip hop, it's all syncopated. Moving on. Instrumentation. Nylon string guitars, electric bass synths, santur, which is an Iranian instrument, strings and brass. And some terms I'm using here that you'll see, because I have a listening guide for you all here. Ostinato, which is just a repeated pattern. You can think of beats in a hip hop tune, that's all an ostinato is, anything repeated. And virtuosic, like I said before, crazy skills, you're really good at your instrument. So Dr. Lopez here has a doctorate in clarinet. He is a virtuoso on the clarinet. No one plays better than him, not even Squidward. Okay, and let's see, obbligato is I'm just teasing, not even Calvin Block. Not even Calvin Block. See, that's it, you're wrong. I love you too. Okay, so obbligato just means a distinctive instrumental part. So let's go ahead and let's fire this up. So our listening guide, let's take a listen. Here we go. So listen for this opening groove in 7, and I'm gonna pop up. I'm gonna animate this as the piece progresses there. So here we go. This is Paris. Oh, that was Paris. Here we go. I turned it down. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3. Can you get the 7? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. Yeah, and I guess I did put the lyrics in. Yeah, the lyrics aren't very good. It's one of those. Because I looked them up because I looked them up this time and I'm like, yeah, that's all right. Not the most, blood hell has begun to the tune of the gun. And the guy's actually British, so I thought he'd be a little better at that. But it's okay. But again, very different opening here. So let me turn it over to David. Here we go.
All right, thanks, John. All right, so we're going to go a very different direction here with this next song. I'll just go ahead and remind you that I'm kind of here to talk about some of the jazzier elements of some of these musical examples. And this next song, if you were here at our panel about a year ago, you might recognize the song. Or you say, oh, we did Fly Me to the Moon at that time too. And that's what this is, but it's a very different take on this. So I'm going to just kind of breeze through the background of this song here because I think a lot of you may already know this. But Fly Me to the Moon, originally written by Bart Howard, is probably one of the most famous jazz standards that are out there. You're probably familiar with this Frank Sinatra version, although there's a lot of different artists who have performed it over the years. In fact, it's a very impressive list of pretty much anybody who's ever recorded has done this at some point or other, at least singers, that is. And you even see examples of pop stars like Lady Gaga who did it. So this is a very famous song, and the last time we were here, there was a bossa nova version that was covered, and I'll tell you a little about that later today. And what else last time we were here, I also mentioned that it's such a big jazz standard that you even noticed that a lot of people would include it in their albums that featured string arrangements, which is a very jazzy thing to do. A lot of jazz musicians like to come up with an arranged version of songs in there and make an album dedicated to including string accompaniment, which is kind of softens the mood. Anyhow, this version that we're going to listen to today is very different because a lot of times when people make arrangements or they treat a song in a certain way, it's done to create a certain mood, to give you a certain feeling of emotion. In this particular case, a lot of the primary parameters of music that we're used to were kind of removed or minimalized. You're going to get first a very rhythmically free version because you're going to probably recognize the Fly Me to the Moon theme or melody, and that's because the pitches of the song are going to be the same as what you expect, but you're not going to get any kind of steady rhythmic flow that goes along with that. It's going to sound very free. It's going to sound very much like you're not going to be dancing to it. You're going to have trouble tapping your foot to it even. But like I said, what you will recognize are the pitches from the original melody. So it's still going to be recognizable. What you're also not going to get is harmony. You're not going to get any kind of chords. There's going to be no guitar adding chords or comping. It's going to be very, very bare bones, very minimal. But of course, the harmony will still be implied because you're still going to hear the melody that aligns with the chords. So if there were a guitar player there or someone playing piano chords, it would fit in, seamlessly. But again, those things are going to be absent. Now, at this point, you're probably thinking, okay, well, how is this jazzy? Well, it's not going to sound jazzy at all, except there's one element that's going to probably kick it into that category. And then you're going to get some jazz ornamentations from the piano that are designed, well, you're going to probably recognize them as jazzy or from the jazz style. But that kind of stylistic playing is used in piano because the jazz style, the jazz genre, originated from a vocal style where performers would bend the notes and give it, we call them blue notes, or it would give them a little bit more expressive quality. Well, when that style was transferred to Western instruments, musicians had to figure out how to emulate that. And on saxophone and trumpet, that's easier to do because you can kind of bend your lip a little bit and the pitch goes and does kind of a bendy, scoopy thing. But that's more difficult to do on piano. So when you hear pianists do it, it's more of a da-da-da-da kind of ornament that precedes the notes that are kind of central to the melody. So you're going to hear that here. It's going to sound perhaps a little, just slightly jazzy. It's going to have a little jazz seasoning. But again, this is designed to be a very rhythmically free treatment of the song. And historically, usually people do that when they don't want you to be overwhelmed by the rhythm. So in this case, we'll go ahead and let you take a listen. Yeah, there it is. Yeah, I noticed that too. I don't know if you guys could hear it, but could you hear a faint guitar in the mix? Like, oh, you could? Okay, yeah. I noticed when I was listening to it, I had to crank it kind of way up to hear that, but that came through better here in this setting. Good.
Yeah, it's okay. All right, cool. All right, Elliott, take it away.
So you're already seeing the variety, the kind of musical contrasts that are available to us in the music of Evangelion. That sort of sense of contrast is going to continue here as we listen to Yearning for Your Love. What we have here is a very simple song. Overall, a song made up of kind of folk guitar styling. So as I was listening to this, I was trying to figure out, okay, this is playable. You know, even kind of a guitar hack like myself, I can figure this out. So sure enough, it's just a capo on the 3rd fret, your like middle finger on the 3rd string, you're holding that down, and you kind of walk your 4th and 5th fingers to get the descending bass line. Very much a finger style pattern, simple finger style pattern, over which you'll hear the singer and in some cases a kind of multi-tracked vocal harmony, and then trumpet inclusions, sort of trumpet punctuation, if you will. The song begins with what I feel is an unmistakable Beatles influence. You've got songs from the Beatles catalog, like Dear Prudence, that feature this same kind of fingerstyle guitar with a little bit of a descending bass. And when I say a descending bass, we're not hearing an electric bass. What I mean is the lowest note that the guitar is playing, the bass note in the chord that it's playing. When the trumpets enter, they kind of evoke a sense of Beatles tunes like Penny Lane or All You Need Is Love. These are brass passages that don't really play a full melodic idea, a theme by themselves. They play short motifs, little hits of just brief snippets of an idea that emphasize what the singer has been singing. The later trumpet passages get a little more syncopated, a little more of that jazz influence that David was just talking about. But I feel like it's still used in that kind of Beatles-esque or George Martin, the Beatles producer, arranger, manner. We're not talking about the horn section playing full melodic material. That's reserved for the singer. Let's see here. Another Beatles element are the use of secondary dominant chords, often vocal harmonies. When we say secondary dominant, what we're talking about is a 7th chord, right? So if you got your basic triad, bum bum bum, 1 3 5, you're playing that on the piano, 1 3 5. You tap a minor 7th on the top of that, 1 3 5 7. That's a dominant 7th chord. And there are certain chords where you would expect to put a seventh. That you add that seventh to the chord, like on the 5 chord, and it drives you back to the home base, the 1 chord. But if you put that dominant seventh on a different chord, it drives your ear to a different destination. And that's something the Beatles played around with quite a bit in their music. And we hear that here as well. Let's see here. I think we got an intro and an outro. You're going to hear the horns mostly on that. Minimal lyrical composition here. One verse, one refrain, and then the whole thing is repeated the second time. So let's go ahead and listen to our song, Yearning for Your Love. I was telling David before we started that when I listened to that for the first time, those little trumpet hits in the intro, the outro, and the interlude reminded me of the Vince Guaraldi soundtrack for the Charlie Brown Thanksgiving. That's one of the references for me. Is listen to that. I did leave out a term I wanted to mention. That repeated pattern in the guitar functions as an ostinato, just continuously cycling through that pattern of notes. It's a stock part of pop and folk guitar playing and idioms, but it was certainly used to great effect here.
All right, cool. Although I have to say, are any of you familiar with the Beatles song "Dear Prudence"? Because the beginning, actually when he mentioned that, like with with the. Right? Because then if you went to. Yeah, right, yeah. Because when he asked you to hear Beatles, I'm like, oh yeah. All right, next, this next one, I found this to be so charming. And by the way, because I buy the CDs, I mean, I'm old school, I find CDs and I dig these up. The next tune we're going to hear is, let's see, Furimo Kanaide, or Don't Turn Around from Evangelion 2.2, You Cannot Advance. So this is an interesting, just charming pop tune here. Music is by Yasushi Miyagawa, that's him on the left, and lyrics by Tokiko Iwatani on the right there. The name of the duet is called The Peanuts. So this is from 1962. They were a pop duet. They were actually twin sisters there, Emi and Yumi. And you may say, hey man, now do they look familiar to anybody? You say, hey, I think I've seen them in a kaiju film. We're talking about a bug. Garrett, you don't know? No? Okay, anyone right? They are the Mothra twins. Yes, and so they were there, and as we all know, Ano Hideki's a huge kaiju fan, right? We know that. So I think it's cool that he used this tune here. So so the instrumentation is pretty straight ahead. This is rock band, sax, xylophone. Digging around for this, it's considered to be one of the first Japanese pop tunes. What happens anytime a foreign like music comes and kind of gets introduced into another culture, like in the case of classical music, because I've studied the symphony for a bit there, all the early Japanese symphonists sounded Russian, because that's what they're listening to. They listen to Prokofiev, they listen to Stravinsky, and it wasn't until we get to Akira Ifukube. Have any of you heard of Ifukube? Okay, oh, good. What did he write? Do you know? No, Godzilla. Yeah, he wrote Godzilla, the Godzilla soundtrack. But he actually used Japanese folk. Yeah, I know. But so it takes a while for once the new genre comes in to actually make it sound more like it was made in the country, and especially a place like Japan, where, as you all know, they are masters at imitation. I mean, their punk bands play better than any punk band on the planet. Okay, so let's see here. Oh, this is a 1-6-4-5 progression. So you could sing "Stand by Me" to this song. You could sing what is that? Oh goodness. You can sing like a Dream, Dream, Dream. There are a lot of pop tunes that use this very same chord progression. So buckle in, this is very fun and charming work here. This is the Peanuts, and this is Furimo Kanaide, or Don't Turn Around, because they're embarrassed. Here we go. Won't you stand by me? Please stand by me.
Ina
forgot to mention this. I forgot which. Can somebody? Their daughters play the Mothra twins in one of the more recent Godzilla films. Have you seen that? Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah. Okay. All right. So charming tune there. Hope y'all like that. And David, let me pass it back to you.
All right, thank you. So, so the next song that we're going to listen to is going to be a bossa nova. And in jazz, musicians frequently get together and they play standards. These are songs that are the same songs. They come from the same song, but they become repertoire. But what is cool about that is that when you play the same songs, you can actually still change them up quite a bit. So it's not uncommon for jazz musicians to change different aspects of this song. For example, sometimes they can change the melody a little bit, right? Like Miles Davis is kind of famous for being a trumpet player who changed the melody quite a bit, whereas Chet Baker was a trumpet player who didn't change the melody a great deal. They might change the speed, right? So you might decide to do a song faster or slower than the original. They might take liberties with the harmony and reharmonize the songs a little bit to make them sound fresh. One thing that they usually don't do is they usually don't change the form. But the point I'm trying to get to is that musicians are frequently trying to bring new ideas to songs to make them a little bit unique. And another one of those things that they can do is they can change the manner in which they play it. So they can say, hey, let's play this song as a mambo, or let's play this song, but this time let's do it as a bossa nova. And so what that's doing is it's just changing the atmosphere of the song. A bossa would be something where it's more relaxed. The bass is going to probably move on beats 1 and 3. So 1, 2, 3, 4, boom, king, boom, king. The accompaniment, the chords that will be counted will go along with a ba 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 ding ding da da. So it's kind of a it's kind of a stylized formula that when musicians get together and they want to do a song that way, everyone kind of knows what to do and what their role is. So this is an example of that. This is going to make the song feel a little bit more, like I said, light or free. And one of the things that Dr. Jones and I were talking about beforehand is he was mentioning how one of his songs kind of went into a different area. And I was noticing that a lot of the music that we kind of cover in these sessions, they kind of go into different styles where you notice that, you might start in one mood or one feel, but then what they do is they might add and shift and go into a Beatles mode, or go into a, Charlie Parker and strings mode, and they're taking ways of arranging the song that really are reminiscent to a certain stylized area, and it's kind of neat. In this particular case, we're going to notice that there's going to be strings added towards the end of the arrangement, and a lot of jazz musicians, as I said before, use strings to kind of soften the vibe, to keep it interesting, but it gives the song a bigger feel while also kind of smoothing out some of the edges of what might be a little bit more of an intense or energetic kind of feel. John, I know you had a couple things you wanted to say about the singer in this arrangement.
Oh, right, yeah. So regarding the tune itself, and I didn't know this, the original version of this, and Ano Hideki does this a lot. He'll pull a lot of songs from the past, and probably most likely his past, and put them into his works there. So the original version of the tune was composed and sung by Yumi Matsutoya, born in 1954, and I think she still looks like this because she's Japanese. Appears on the soundtrack to the 1984 film Sayonara Jupiter. Have any of you ever heard or seen that film? It sounds interesting, I know. So the version we have in Eva 3.0, Thrice Upon a Time, is sung by Megumi Hayashibara, born in 1967. So I think we're ready. We have our lyrics up here. All right, here we go. Take a listen. going to go and pipe it down there. And by the way, we can turn the lights on. That's okay. I think we might be putting people to sleep with kind of this mellow bossa music.
These soothing
I think I like this. Oh, I think I'm dreaming. And then your dad turns into Gendo. Just kidding. No, I mean, no. You can turn them on for them too. I mean, it's okay. Yeah. Okay. Alrighty. Can you see the screen okay still? Yeah. I mean, really for you can turn the lights on there. That way, it's better for. It's probably better for the audience. Yeah. You can turn it down. They don't need to see us. All right, Elliott, take it away.
So you might think that after all this peaceful music, we would throw something in that's just grinding and aggressive. No, we're gonna go with the Yesu Joy of Man's Desiring. Yeah. But this just continues the illustration of how, and as John said, I'm not as familiar with, as I'm sure with many of you in the room, maybe even all of you in the room, with the entirety of this series. But would I be correct in saying that the series wrestles with questions of just horrendous violence and civilization-ending conflicts and questions of existential crises, things like that? Yes. And yet the soundtrack is at least made up in part of really lovely, lush bossa nova and really gentle Baroque melodies. So it's a really interesting choice that the creative minds behind this have made to run counter, at least at times, to the overall action. That's going to continue right here with the Yesu Joy of Man's Desiring. Now, this piece, what I'd like to focus on is a little less about specific musical concepts, such as a particular melodic line or a chord. I want to talk a little bit about how this particular rendition of this music came to be, because the piece that it's based on is actually quite different. In fact, when I first chose to talk about this piece, I chose it because as a choir guy, this piece was originally a cantata. It grows out of a cantata written by Johann Sebastian Bach in the early 1700s, and features orchestra, chorus, vocal soloists, and the piece that you're going to hear is solo piano. So how does this, and it actually has a different name, so how does this come to be? So the solo piano that we are going to listen to has its origins in that 1723 cantata by J.S. Bach that I mentioned, Herz und Mund und Tat und Leben, and that's the Bachwerk Verzeichnis. That's what BWV stands for. It's the catalog number. So from now on, I'm going to call it 147, cantata 147. But I told you that the forming forces. This piece actually, though, is based on a number of pre-existing pieces. For example, Bach himself wrote an earlier version of his cantata in 1716 that I didn't mention on the slide, but the melody that he incorporates in movements 6 and 10 of his 1723 cantata were written almost a century earlier by Johann Schopp, 1641 chorale tune. It's you need to understand about these cantatas used in Baroque Lutheran worship services is that a chorale was essentially a hymn, but the text and the music were generally written by two different people, and sometimes those were interchangeable. So in his 1723 cantata, Bach pulls for movements 6 and 10, they're musically exactly the same. He pulls a source tune by Schopp, and then pulls poetry by someone else, the Jesu meine Seelen wohne. So he's already assembled a bunch of pre-existing materials to put together his choral orchestral cantata. Those two movements I mentioned, movement 6 and movement 10, are kind of the ending. They're the finale, if you will, of the two parts of this cantata. So they wrap it up, they bring it to a close. They each incorporate a different stanza of that much longer original text. The two stanzas, Wohl mir, dass ich Jesum habe, and Jesus bleibet meine Freude, those are movements 6 and 10. Those are the first lines of that text. You can see that the text that's the title that's listed for this track is that second one, Jesus bleibet meine Freude. But this piano arrangement that we're hearing is actually a 1926 arrangement by a pianist named Myra Hess, Dame Myra Hess, a very well-known, famous pianist, who then published it under the title Yesu Joy of Man's Desire, which is not really a translation of any of the lyrics. It's sort of an impression of those lyrics. So this is a piece And by the way, you may have heard this song. Have any of us heard this performed as a vocal solo? So you have heard, if you've heard this performed in English, you have heard again, not a translation of the original German, but a new poem based on those lyrics, kind of inspired by those 16th century texts. So this is a piece that took a lot of amalgamation. We're kind of familiar with this kind of construction in contemporary pop music, right? Somebody writes a beat, or they sample a piece from another piece, from an earlier song, and they then build a new song around that. Some of that same amalgamation and construction and borrowing has happened here in this. And it now comes down and is used this very gentle, even slower than normal piano tempo to underscore a scene of real sort of questioning of existence and things like that. So just wanted you to understand kind of the origin story, if you will, of this gentle piano work. Let's listen to, I guess it's German, right?
This is a pianist, Jan Panenka.
You're going to hear this too. Oh yeah, I didn't mention the pianist name. I should also mention Jan Panenka.
Yeah.
Unlike some of the other pieces that, like we talked about on Thursday, where pieces were written for the soundtrack, this was an existing performance that was pulled into the soundtrack for usage. And I think you mentioned, John, that the performer had actually passed away before the.
Yeah, I don't know. He died in what year? What year did Ava start? Anybody know what year? 96? Yeah, he died 3 years afterwards. I know. And what's interesting is, like, if you've heard Shinji playing the cello, that cellist, he actually died, I think, like in 1990. But the thing is, it was just easy to get licenses from a lot of these Eastern European performers, just because it was too tough to get stuff. But it is too bad, because I think so many of these musicians died without knowing that. I mean, we've all heard that cello version. I mean, once your recording gets on a soundtrack, like millions of people hear it. Also, this is from End of Evangelion. Anybody recognize this scene here? This is actually cut from the film. It was actually it was a still from one of the unused endings for End of Evangelion. So here we go.
Oh, can I mention one more thing? The tune that probably a lot of us associate with this, the opening da 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 da, that's Bach. That's his addition. The da da da. I'm probably in the wrong key. Da 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 da. That is the Chopin chorale tune. So those are those two main melodic components to this piece. Here we go. Mention here too that this really slow tempo and the fluctuations in the tempo, the changing tempo, that's not something we tend to associate with Baroque performance. Bach's music, to the best of our knowledge, the pieces tend to be performed at that time with a fairly steady tempo. So this is a kind of modern interpretation of a much older style.
I know. I was actually going through this with the guys last night, and I thought, hey, it'd be kind of cool if I showed the video at the end of Evangelion. I was watching. I'm like, this is cool. Oh, can't show that. Never mind. Okay, because we're all ages crowd. So, but do check it out. And by the way, I do not recommend. I put this on last night before I went to sleep. When the voices start talking, that just shocked that. I'm like, what was that? Oh yeah, so it was really funny. So maybe I didn't get as much sleep as I should have. All right, we have a little bit of time. Any questions for us on anything we went over? No questions. Oh yes.
I think I got one. So on the Masa song, I heard something that sounded like "Stairway to Heaven" for a second there.
Was it?
Yeah, you weren't imagining that. In fact, John Marr said that to me. He leaned over. Did Dr. Jones, was that from you?
At the same time.
Yeah. So sometimes.
Yes.
I got whiplash. I was like, "Stairway."
Yeah, sometimes those kind of what do you call them? This harmonic similarities and so forth, and arrangements, and so forth. They can recall those types of things. So good catch.
Yeah, you listen to enough music and you'll say, oh yeah, this got taken from that or whatever. Okay. Any other questions on Ava or on Ava music? Oh yes.
Will slides be available?
Oh yeah, if you want to. Oh, real quick. Oh yeah, for further study, here is. Wait. Okay. No. Oops, sorry. I want to go here. There we go. Further study. So this is his website. He has an active Twitter. Sugisu does have an active Twitter account. There's a good article in Japanese here. If you want to email us, I'll be happy to send this to you. And if you want any of our other panels, any like the first or second impacts, we'd love to talk to you. And all right, and if you just want to come talk to us later, thank you all so very much for coming. Enjoy the convention. Thanks for getting us in.